Wow, good morning. It's Monday. We're somewhere in the middle of March. How could I forget? It's the end of March. Aloha. This is Jason Schwartz. I'm your host here at the Neutral Zone. KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. And we're on Akaku Maui Community Media TV to old people like me, Channel 55. You can find the app on Google Play Store, I think it is, or I'm a Mac guy, or the App Store as Maui Stream. You get all the channels for the TV and also for radio, and I think we have a spot there. You can also find us up on YouTube at YouTube Dream Maui and the number 1. You can also find us at MauiNeutralZone.com. We're anything but neutral, and I have a real great example today. Actually, I don't have anything. I was out going to meet someone on the west side of Maui to talk to about putting together a music show, and I never got to see him again. It's been 20 years, 25 years. I hadn't seen Farzad at the jazz place. By the way, this is Jon Kinimaka. I'm going to introduce him in a second. Okay. But many of you know him for many years. This just happens that we have never met before, but it's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Mahalo for inviting me to
Your
come
name
talk,
has been in the wind for so long. Anyway, I was out there, and I was talking to Brad and his friend Don Decker, and you know, Brad's looking to help house people in Kihei that are houseless, that have been, you know, some of the more difficult people in the world to help. They're on the low end of the spectrum. So he was working with Donnie looking for a place, and Don was talking about things and how he helped out in the West, and this name came up. You know, he said there were a bunch of people, but the one that really could speak about this, who has authority and knowledge and is really the man, Jon Kinimaka. And I thought, oh, that sounds like a Hawaiian
That's
guy.
a compliment. Thank
Great.
you, Donnie.
So otherwise, I would have never had this opportunity to meet you. So thank you, Donnie Decker. And I hope that everyone hears this show and shares it with everyone and passes it around, not only here locally, but to the world, because we're the tip of the iceberg. What we say here, we're just a couple of voices, but we're in Maui. We weren't in Kansas. We're not in Kansas anymore. So when we have this special thing for the world, they actually might see it, because people come to Maui. People think of Maui. So if you put into Google Jon Kinimaka, Neutral Zone, Jon Kinimaka, Jason Schwartz, Maui, all that stuff, you will see it. They'll just come right up. Now, all that preparation for Donnie Decker, I hadn't seen him in literally 20 years or more. When Anchor Square in Lahaina, and he had 8 suites and a whole active business, you know, and I just knew that name. So when Brad mentioned this guy, I wanted to meet him. So when we met there, little did I know that the place, there's Farzad talking to someone and I never got to speak to him because we got off on this other sidetrack for a couple hours and things happened. So I'm sure we'll talk to me and Farzad. But you came up as really an important link. You can tell me background if you want first, but when that happened, when this giant catastrophe occurred on the west side, I've heard all kinds of stories of people running and coming from everywhere. It's like the lineup of help was not short. It was long. And Maui was in a constant effort. Even before the government came and before anyone was here, there was a giant movement to help people. That I saw no color lines, no racial issues, none of the things that the world often, you know, poses itself as. It was truly a loving experience. Everyone on this island didn't know that I saw how they can really help. But this island's whole economy was suddenly shrunk. And we already had a housing shortage and it got worse. And we didn't know where to go, what to do. But there were a couple of, I guess I call them camps. I don't really know. You'll tell me. This is a big opening. I'm sure someone's going to say, Jason, shut up. Let him talk. You were out there in the West. What happened? How did this all happen? Where were you and how did this develop?
Well, as far as the relief effort goes, I don't want to get too much into like what I experienced during the fire, other than the fact that I was very much moved the day after when I did a 10-hour hike through Lahaina to go see the devastation of our community, because I had to see it for myself. And the residence that I was staying at on Lahaina Luna was gone. And, the only way I could really describe what was gone was just what was standing was easier to describe. What was left, because everything was pretty much gone. So that pretty much moved me, activated me, the images of what I remember seeing and the reality, kind of in shock. But the whole time I had walked through Lahaina that day, God was speaking to me. It became very spiritual for me in a situation where you just see the loss of life of your community, and you just see things that really hit you. And there was nothing that I could do. Everything that was there was pretty much gone. Everybody was lifeless. If whoever stayed there didn't make it through. And I just thought about the calling of what we need to do to help our community. That came to me. I didn't know it was going to be as needed as it was in the beginning. I just thought oh, wow, there's nothing that we can do. Everybody's gone, but we need to go take care of the people that survived was a primary mission. And being able to work as a volunteer and work with other leaders, volunteers, people that wanted to help make a difference and get organized. We picked Honokowai Park. I picked it because that's where I raised my kids. They had all their birthdays out there at Honokowai Park, and it just seemed like a very strategic place for us to be as far as getting the vehicles, the convoys through, and making sure that safety was a priority, safety and security, because we didn't want to see no more loss of lives. And it was very crowded. It was very dangerous. A lot happened within the first week that seemed like it may have gone on for months. One day seemed like forever. 1 week seemed like it was a year. And there was just so much going on, outpouring of support. And I just want to say mahalo to the community, here on Maui and on the outer islands, all the Molokai, Lanai, Oahu, the different parts of the islands that came to help us at the most crucial time, when the National Guard and the government decided that they needed to shut the road down and nobody could go in or out, and they had different regulations. Things were changing, rumors of looting going on, and then we had another fire evacuation. People were very traumatized, after they had evacuated, and there was a lot of chaos, and we did the best that we could do to try to come together as a community. Right there at that particular hub, knowing that there were other relief hubs.
You were part of this group, and like I said your name arose in a bunch of people. So a bunch of you community leaders, or you joined with others that were all coming together now at that location, right?
Yes.
And obviously, once again, your experience, you've been in the community a long time, so you know who to call, where to call, maybe to know their numbers.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Because once we got the Starlink set up out there, we had a truck out there. People were coming by the hundreds, the thousands. Our relief hub at Honokowai Park just grew tremendously with support from all over the world. We had a lot of people come as volunteers, and then there were people that came to see what they could get. We weren't allowing anybody to come there that was not from Maui, number one, or people that came after the fire to just kind of get a free ride. They wanted to be volunteers. It was something that we had to make sure that it wasn't going to happen there. We didn't want people coming and using us as a backdrop or a platform to raise money and intercept donations that were coming, because people want to know, who do they donate their money to? Is it going to the right cause? And there was just so much going on with that. But while we're on that subject, the Lahaina Community Land Trust, through everything that has settled down, seems to be the most reputable that I can recommend anybody to send their donations to, because a lot of people are not sure like how to help Maui out because there was a lot of rumors and we don't know yet. But, you know, when the dust settles, there'll be a paper trail. And it's just unfortunate that there were people out there that had their own agenda. And there was a lot of that going on. It took advantage of a chaotic situation.
Yeah.
And so we had to deal with all of that and just focus on the mission primarily. Number one was making sure that everybody got their supplies. And one thing about our hub is we weren't getting any government grant funding or anything like that. Everybody there, for the most part, was working as a volunteer, including myself. And yeah, so we did the best that we could do, and we reached out. We reached out to the entire island. It wasn't just if you were a fire victim or if your house burned down. You know, the economy of Maui was pretty much broke after the fire. Had a really bad ripple effect on the community and the economy, and we were there to help anybody. We didn't say, oh, we didn't vet people, you know. But then again, you know, there are people like took more than they should be taking, but you know, they got to live with themselves, and we tried our best to regulate as much as we could.
Understood.
And we just wanted to make sure that everybody got what they needed because it came from the community, for the community. And, you know, eventually FEMA and Red Cross had people going into the hotels. So a lot of the people that were on the FEMA and Red Cross cases, you know, on their program, they were taken care of. You know, in fact, a lot of people were taken care of for what they called safe harbor, you know, where you got till like September 29th to prove your documentation, or, you know, you got to go. And, you know, they were trying to get people out of there before that. And, yeah, so it was like all kinds of things going on at once. And the thing I really loved about it was the way we came together, you know, and we were able to work things out, you know, and of course there was always going to be people that don't agree on certain things, but you know, we just had to stay focused on the mission, and the mission was, of course, safety and making sure people got their supplies. And we had a lot of supplies. We had convoys going from the morning into the evening.
Wow.
I never drank so much coffee in my life. You know, after the first, you know, like 4 days, I was already like, you know, I went on social media. I'm like, okay, gang, I'm going to take a break. You know, I need a day off, which I didn't. You know, I kept talking to everybody. Oh, Uncle, take a day off. You know, I'm like, I just couldn't. And then there was looting going on. There was a lot of like things were out of control because people were still trying to get their family members accounted for. And this particular park, we had a lot of people out there that are pretty much there all the time. And then, you know, it's also the Tongan community that, you know, I reached out to and said, hey, you know, when you guys are ready, you know, come help us. You know, I'm handing over the security to you guys to take over and make sure that, you know, everybody stays safe and nobody loots. And they came, and the knuckleheads left, and eventually they came back, the knuckleheads. They came back and apologized, you know, and whatnot. But it was nice to see them restore order. And we had marked off, you know, parking stalls for certain people to come, like especially the medics, the Mauna medics, you know, from Mauna Kea. They're already organized. They've done their work up there on the Mauna, and they were here like within the first week to come. And I was like, when is the Red Cross, or when is the helicopters gonna land, the National Guard? When are we gonna get our supplies? And
Yeah.
from the government? And
Quick.
it was like almost 3 months later when I saw the first official government politician. Well, there was another one. And she didn't really help, but then I think Gabe Johnson came out there, and I just didn't see a lot. Everybody was busy, though. I understand that, but you know, it'd be nice to see, you know, some people come. And by the time the Red Cross got there and FEMA, I guess they were directed to go across the street at the church, and you know, I guess everybody decided that we just gonna continue running our hub how we were running it, and didn't want them to come in and then
disrupt what you were doing.
Yeah, so there were pretty much other people that took care of that. And then I guess there was a lady, her name was Shirley from the Red Cross from Oahu, and she came. She goes, "Oh, Uncle John, you know, he came up here to, you know, see that if we can help, at least drop off supplies, you know. We don't want to." I says, "Yeah, we don't want you to try to come out here and run things. Let us do what we got to do out here. We're working out just fine without you folks." And they said, "Can we at least drop stuff off, supplies?" I said, "Yes, we'll take supplies from anybody. You know, I'm not going to discriminate against that because we needed all the help that we can get." And we're still like in that phase right now, but the phase, not that phase, but we're in a new phase of housing, you know, because of course, you know, as everybody knows very well, that it's very difficult on Maui, you know.
And when we say that this affected the whole island, it affected the whole island. Can you imagine that you're a place that needs another 5,000 or 6,000 units anyway of housing units, so that things don't just skyrocket, right? And then suddenly you have a need for another 3,000 homes. Is that what we're talking? You had people running in all directions and all kinds of different agendas, all happening. We on the other side of the hill, we look up, we see beautiful sky. I know that right over that. Oh, I was at the golf course at the dunes the day after. It's almost like another world. We felt separated. And then almost like a wave, and the whole island suddenly got, you know, as I saw it, really, economy was difficult. There was already crime. You know, I mean, we know we have shortages in police, and we all want each other. But somehow, you guys seemed like you were holding it together. And 3 months later, the economy here is still really reeling. We're still reeling. Come on back, people. You know, but how do you rise in the ranks of just a catastrophe? Because when I spoke to people out there, that's the name I heard, Jon Kinimaka. How did you suddenly become the leader of this gang of rebels?
Like
you
I
weren't
said,
even rebels. You were the heroes of the community coming out.
Well, for one thing, you know, Honokowai has pretty much been my community where I raised my children. So, you know, I got roots there. And what motivated me more than anything was just seeing the devastation the day after the fire. And like I said, you know, it really moved me that I needed to go and help, you know, just wanted to be a volunteer. I wasn't looking for any special, you know, titles or anything like that, because that's always a loaded question when people come out to the hub. They're like, who's in charge here? You know, and then I would just point at somebody else, and that's, you know, trying to bring everybody together and empower other people to be leaders, because that's what it took. It's, you know, it's not just one person. Right. It's just that I could yell the loudest, and I cussed the most, and and I got my word across, and, you know, I think maybe that can be attributed to my 8 years.
And you had enough experience where group of leaders recognize, like I said, it was Donnie Decker pointing you out, but like you just said, we were a team of champions. You had one special talent that you did, but you could recognize and keep track of things. You were in the military before, so to me, I think, man has been taught how to organize by a system. Somebody that knows how to deal with a lot of pieces and put logistics together. Wow. So I can't imagine the transition. To me, I'm thinking, okay, you guys had this giant camp all set up. So you were operating separately before, not supplied by, you know, I was wondering, all this help that was supposed to come and somehow be here, if in an emergency, in my mind, you'd be able to put up tents like they do for a refugee or for military. Did any of that happen?
No, but we had requested that to happen at one point in time. In the first, I think I believe it was like after like 10 days, there was a congresswoman that had come and had offered us assistance, and we were like, what took you so long? And I guess she couldn't get a hotel on the west side or something like that, whatever it was. And she left us with a bag of spam and rice and crackers. And, you know, we had asked for a water buffalo that would have really helped us out a lot. And we had those in the military. It was just like a big
water tank?
Yeah, on a trailer. And, you know, it's drinking water. and we asked for 10 Army cots, which were for our medics and our patients. We had a lot of medics. We had a healing tent. We had light workers, massage therapists, acupuncturists.
I have numbers of friends that were running over there, treating people that said it was just endless. It was like, I've never been in a war. Thank you, God. I hope not keep up that record. But it seemed like there was just a stream of goodwill.
There was more good than bad, if I can say anything. There was a very good balance, but I would say the silver lining, like, for instance, we talked about Donnie, and there were other alpha males out there, like there's people that we know in the community that we see around in our little Lahaina town community that we always see around, and sometimes we say hi to, sometimes we act like we don't even see them. And Donnie was one of those people that, how alpha males kind of clash. And, in fact, I saw him soon, immediately, like I think it was the first day at the hub, and he came up to me and he wanted to give me a hug, and I was just too full of ego and emotions to hug him, and I didn't want to. And then after about 3 or 4 days, it was so chaotic, the madness, that I remember flagging Donnie down. I said, Donnie, come. He goes, well, what do you need, John? I said, I need a hug. So we finally hugged, and that's when you realize who's got your back, who's on your team.
Yeah.
And didn't know it was going to be like this, but there were other alpha males that were out there too, and I called it the unification of the alpha males, because we were all able to come together. In the first couple of days, we didn't talk to each other, we didn't know who each other were. Then all of a sudden, we just became brothers and family. And of course, there were the sisters, there were the women, that always supported us, and and it was amazing. And a lot of people came, celebrities came, and who else came? We ended up having concerts out there. Common Kings came like not even maybe like a week after, before, like maybe in 10 days, the group Common Kings came, and people didn't believe it when I posted it. Like, Common Kings is coming, and some people were like, wait a minute, you guys are out there having fun. We're out here healing. And that was the mission,
Oh, yeah.
It's just we need to heal, physically and mentally. There were a lot of people that weren't getting their medication, and you knew who they were. They were acting out, and eventually we had a doctor at our medic tent that was able to write prescriptions, and we had a pet store. We had a veterinarian running the pet store, and we had an optometrist. We had a barber. We had everything out there. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing to see our community come together, But there's the other part that people that didn't get to come. We had people out there that were, like after a week, like Uncle, Jeannie's still not found, and it's just really sad to know, like, a lot of my friends were missing. There were hundreds of people on the list, and thank God it narrowed down. And I lost a lot of friends. My friend Carol Hartley, I paddled canoe with her, and we raced together. And she was a tough woman, and she a lot of great memories. But it just was, I'm still in shock, about a lot of this. It's coming.
I heard from a friend in the choir whose husband perished in the fire, or we all know we're a small island, and it's really impacted us. Here we are. Today is what, 24th of
It's been over a year and a half.
Year and a half later, your hub, did it break up, or I guess suddenly what happens there?
After 3 months of me being there, I kind of like slowly phased myself out. I was in a situation where I really needed to start healing myself and taking care of myself. And I started to go to the Lahaina collective yoga classes held by a number of ladies that lost their yoga studios in Lahaina. And so they all decided to go out to Airport Beach in the morning at 7:30. And wow. And they did fundraisers out there, and they provided yoga classes. And still to this day, it's free, but if you want to make a donation, and they're helping out. And So that, and then there was also the CrossFit, Lahaina CrossFit program out there that I started to go to eventually, and so yeah, just working on myself became a priority, you know, and trying to heal, because I felt like doing all this working out and stuff was still like masking things, you know, and I was just trying to keep myself busy. And so finally I just like decided that, you know, I'm just going to chill and just like start things over and just focus on my health and my nutrition, and that's what I'm doing now. So I have time to do this with you.
We're a year and a half afterwards. Have been your experience? Have things settled down? Where are things now? I mean, I thought that we were going to get a lot of help. I found $700 is they give someone money, anyone that was in the, which is like nothing, by the way. But has there been activity to replace what you did in any kind of way that delivered like you guys, or was it suddenly much more restricted? I somehow feel I still see people around that still aren't settled from that situation.
Well, there were other hubs that, you know, they were getting help, they're getting support. Other community leaders, you know, Keomoku Kapu over at the Sheraton, and then we had his son Kaipo Kekona out at Napili Noho, and our hub just kind of like, after I decided that, you know, I need to go take care of myself, you know, it kind of like maybe like within a month later, they had, you know, pretty much closed up. And so, yeah, there were other places.
Services, quote, took over?
Yeah, and there was another one over at Kahana Gateway. I guess that was run by Jem. Jem was out there. And so it was good to know, you know, I was in a position where once I realized, like, I think everybody's okay now. It was hard. I probably could have left the hub sooner and gone on with my life a lot sooner. But
what kind of work were you doing, or maybe not?
Well, I'm a veteran, for one thing, so, you know, I'm getting taken care of in that way.
Good.
You know, I get compensation, and I am also a musician. And one thing that I didn't want this fire to take out of me and beat me in anything more than it already had was I continued writing music and recording music as soon as I could get in the studio. In fact, while Hub was still in operation, I managed to sneak over to the studio and get some musicians. We even did a music video. And this was part of my way of healing too, and not letting this disaster take any more out of my own personal life and the things that I love to do. And I was able to do that. In fact, there's a couple songs that I had written before the fire and didn't realize it was about the fire and about the aftermath.
Was this poster behind me, was that you doing music before or after?
That poster right there, the one with Big Chief Thunder, Sam, he was out there at the hub. He came immediately after, and we all wrote a song together called Lahaina Strong Song.
Yeah. And
Sam is in there, Lamb's Bread is in there, Elele Tiana is in there. We collaborated with all these different people, Kiko Alama, just a bunch of people came
still around? We can still see
Lahaina Strong Song. You can go on YouTube and you can see the video. And there's another one that we did. It was called I Love Who You Are. And that was pretty much about what we were going through after the fire, you know, how we came together and how, you know, the best of us, they say in disasters, the best and the worst come out in people. So our best coming out was just, you know, love and care for each other and loving one another. And it really brought us together, you know. And then unfortunately, then there are some people that, you know, that I never talked to before the fire that I talk to now, and there's some people that I knew that I don't talk to now. It's just weird how that works out, you know. But I just like I feel that it was very traumatizing to the point where a lot of us got very sensitive, and you know, and I apologize to anybody in the community that I offended, you know, any of the other leaders. You know, I didn't feel like it didn't have to be like a competition. I was just kind of hoping that we would have had more leadership. You know, there was a lot of people out there that I never saw in my life that were like part of our hub, and I was like hoping that we would get more people, but everybody was busy. You know, I understand there were other hubs, so this is just one that I had to hold down, and thank God the Tongans came, with the muscle and the security and the love and the kava.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and it brought everybody together, the Filipinos and the Caucasians and the locals and the Mexicans. And
Nice.
Mexicans were very helpful. Yeah, we had the best chefs, 5-star chefs. A lot of these people couldn't work, they couldn't, but they came to work at our place, and we had the best produce and the best foods coming through. And they were making, I was on my vegan diet, and they always made sure that I got fed my vegan, So I'm eating vegan, smoking a cigarette, smoking a joint, drinking my coffee or whatever it took. I was in combat mode, and so yeah.
And handling it well. That's really great experience. And when I say great experience, it's great to look back at it. You're sorry it had to happen, but after you breathe after it all, I'm sure you should be.
Yeah.
Very proud for the good work that you've done for our community.
Thank you. Still more work that needs to be done.
Yeah,
And this housing crisis is like very major. We're not out of it. But maybe the blessing is there's more attention about it now, and Lahaina Strong and Paile Boy Kiokona is doing a wonderful job with Kaina Shiki, and making sure that they're standing up, for, our residents, all of our residents. And
how's all that going?
It's going, it's going, but, time will tell. Time will tell, the fight is going, that's for sure, so as long as the fight's going, it's going good.
What are some of the issues? Maybe we can help things by discussing them, or at least bringing them into light.
Well, and like anything, the whole purpose of our relief hub was to get community support, hopefully government support. I think that what would be helpful is people know now where they can put their money. If they want to make donations. The Lahaina Community Land Trust, is very reputable. With Autumn Reynes and Mikey Burke, and Rebel News Canada just gave me a $25,000 check that hadn't been spent yet, that went to Mikey Burke and the Lahaina Community Land Trust, because I made sure I did a little research to find out where can this money go, and everybody's like, yes, that's the right one. So yes, Lahaina Community Land Trust, mahalo.
Yeah. Have you found that you're still, I don't know where in this whole system you're plugged in. I've seen a lot of people. It's hard for me to know where they were before the fire, but there are a lot of people post-fire that are still struggling here at, beyond what I can understand. I've helped people because they literally can't find a place to live. They can't find a place to stop on the side of the road. They're given a bit of a financial assistance, because where do you get it from otherwise? Have you seen any kind of, I guess what you were doing there is almost like a relief effort that still could be somehow going on that I don't see. That's why I was asking about the transition. Like you said, you help people. You were in the middle of a crisis. Everyone was helping. You had the help and the security, everything. Then you went away, and whoever came in helped some needs, but still a lot of big
yeah.
needs.
A lot of that money went to a lot of different things that a lot of people donated, not knowing that it was going to go to other, research projects for different, just like things that were kind of like, you feel like are, irrelevant to, like how you're going to feed these people when you got all these other people getting jobs and job security. So a lot of things, just new jobs started popping up. But I guess, the money was, as long as the money is going to something positive, but people deserve to know, where their money is going and how it's being spent on our community. And
you remember the moving? I guess I don't know when you're in it if you get it to look like a chess player rather than a checkers player. Did you ever see what the land of moving to Walla Walla? Were you guys here or involved in any of that kind of stuff, or you were strictly on the front line saving people and delivering things and services for the community? There were so many moving parts during that time. Like you say, the money was coming, and you didn't know if it was going here or here. That's why I asked earlier about this thing about tents. if we could put 5,000 people in tents, why don't we have any problem with being able to do some of these basic things that are emergency? I don't understand, but
yeah, we had a lot of people that had reached out that were landowners. You know, they had contacted me. I had a couple of people that have 45 acres on Maui, and they wanted to put tiny homes down. You know, this one friend of mine, I can't say his name, you know, but you know, he had made that offer to me, and then, you know, I was like ready to start getting on it, and then I guess someone from the planning department got that, you know, post on. Caught wind and called me up and said, hey, you might run into problems, you know, with some red tape and whatnot, bureaucracy from the county as far as permitting and whatnot, you know, like they're gonna end up getting fined and so on and so forth. And you know, and I reached out to the mayor, and he responded that, you know, we're taking care of that. FEMA's gonna be sending a bunch of tiny homes, which we're now seeing all up around the Lahaina area above Wahikuli. A bunch of those modules, they're there.
20 months later.
Yeah.
20 months. I mean, I
hear you. It took a while, you know.
The lady that runs the Maui AIDS Foundation had 10 mobile home things given her, but couldn't do anything. Didn't have them shift over because there's nowhere to put them. That was the same issue.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of ask my fishy questions.
Well, the situation's gonna get worse in a year, because right now everybody that was on a direct lease through FEMA, didn't have to pay rent, so now they have to pay 1/3 of what FEMA was paying to the landlord, and if you can't afford, and that's big money, even 1/3 is big money. If you can't pay it, then you have to do an appeal. And if you win your appeal, then, you know, they go according to what you're making. But that is for this next year. So come March of 2026, we're gonna see another exodus like we've been seeing. You know, both of my kids have already left the island because they just didn't want to be here to get caught up in whatever was happening here. You know, the big mess. You know, so they chose to just leave, where they can go and be somewhere on another island or on the continent and be more comfortable until things get better and settle down. I think what would be very helpful too is, you know, our Hawaiian community and people that can support the Hawaiian community, and, you know, our movement towards the reconciliation or the restoration of our kingdom that is being illegally occupied, and just like there's enough land to go around to help everybody.
I think we were talking about that even before we get on here.
Yeah,
we are fortunate that there's still enough land that hasn't been, consumed. I don't know what else to say.
The Department of Hawaiian Homelands, you know, I just found out, my cousin Wilmont Kaheli'i was just sharing about, he's been on it's like his anniversary of 27 years on the wait list, like thousands of Hawaiians that die on the wait list. And now he just realized that he's like coming up in 2027, in 3 years, he'll be able to move into his home. And there's 700 families that have been awarded just recently.
I don't understand. Because of time with all the other things.
I don't understand either. Nobody understands.
A wait list for what? Land to be designated.
So you get your home on Hawaiian Homes list.
They're building it for you?
Yes, they build it, and sometimes they have like a community building. There's different ways that they do it. I'm not 100% sure, but what I do know is that there's 700 families that have just been awarded.
Okay.
And some on Maui, you know, and there's like a couple areas like Honokowai area up where Hub was, and Lahaina area by Liali'i, and even up country where they have Hawaiian homes. So it's going to expand. I just kind of find it, the timing of it kind of interesting, but at least it's happening. But I think, there needs to be more effort into doing that, or maybe if that's not the solution, we need to find solutions to somehow free up the land so that we can take care. There's no reason why we should have people camping out on our sidewalks.
That's what I'm saying.
There's different levels of people that are homeless.
You heard me say a simple thing like tents. I always I guess potential for things to go wrong always exists.
You can, Jason, you can have all the tents in the world, but what good are your tents or your tiny homes if you don't have the land to put it on? And
Right.
and then you take a risk of putting a home on some land that might be pulled out from under your feet. So there's a big risk involved in that.
That's the first thing I told these guys. They wanted, Brad wanted to set up an encampment there on the west side. Unless you have cooperation about the land itself, someone takes and pulls the rug right out from under you.
Yeah.
And you can
We
be
don't
an
want to.
example.
We don't.
Maybe
yeah.
we can figure out how to do this and then duplicate it. But they're missing that, again, commentary. Everybody knows I'm a big mouth. This is I think it's an emergency still. It still should be that they should set up temporary housing and clean things up by offering it.
Well, we're like sitting here twiddling our thumbs waiting for government to take action on this ever since, however far it goes back to the illegal occupation, the illegal overthrow of 1893,
Years, yeah.
and the effect that it has caused on us now, and how this fire has just sparked this movement for the need for housing. Because people shouldn't have to leave their homeland and get uprooted and go somewhere else and live. They should be able to stay here and stay home. And
Yeah.
I think, okay, it's an illegal occupation, but, help us out somewhere one way or another. Because what happened on Oahu when I got out of the Army back in 1994, I went over there and I joined into a movement with the independent and sovereign nation of Hawaii that was pretty much headed by Dennis Bumpy Kanahele and the Hawaii and Maui, the Kupuna, our Kupuna Council. And we made a stand in Makapu'u on the beach. And there was literally a standoff, and eventually land was given over. There's now a village up there. And, I had once talked to Bumpy. He says, you guys should do the same thing we did on Oahu and get land on Maui. And I'm like, I'm for it. So I think now is a good time, that our leaders and, the community, everybody just start supporting.
Who would you talk with? Mayor, maybe? Mayor and council? How do you get something like that going where the diplomacy starts? Because
we gotta talk to our people. We gotta talk to the grassroots people. The Kanaka Maoli first. Our kupuna. We gotta do it in order. Of course. And then just spreading out through there and just getting our people involved. If we can make a big move and get thousands of people to go shut down a telescope project on Mauna Kea, we can make the same kind of movement in certain areas that will help us get land, and just,
Would it be helpful to have, I always wonder about that, non-Hawaiians? I've seen so many people who really care and are very supportive of
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Kingdom. How does that work out? Have you been able to figure out how to make it so, though?
There's a lot of people that want to help out, but helping out Hawaiians in Hawaii, helping out to, restore our Hawaiian Kingdom nation and the restoration is going to help everybody. It's not going to just, we'll be able to see changes that we don't see. And, definitely as far as, homelessness and, housing crisis goes, I think there needs to be a bigger effort and a movement towards something that will help us get our land back. And the best way to get our land back is we going to have to go and occupy it. And hopefully we can do it, like you said, the right way. And we can like kind of work together. But if not, I think the best form of protesting would be to go and just say, hey, you know what, we're going to start putting up tents here, and then we're going to start putting up homes. And, if they can do it on Oahu, with Bumpy's movement, we can do it here.
I keep thinking, again, I don't have any magic answer, but cooperation where you'd think that there would be some way that with that clear, I guess not everyone is ready to give it back. I don't know who owns these lands or thinks they own them.
God owns them. God owns the land.
Are they designated, the lands you're talking about?
Well, there's what they call land commission awards from the great Mahele, King Kamehameha III had, divided into three different, different private lands, so Hawaiian Kingdom lands, and then there was the Kuleana lands, Konahiki lands, and those are like put into a trust. And I think the Hawaiians need to like really go back and look into their genealogy and check out the Land Commission awards that are still being honored to this day in court, you know, and you can talk to certain leaders that will help you, like Keomoku Kapu has all of the Land Commission awards, and he helps people with that process. He's helped my family where, you know, you can basically, through what they call a truth affidavit, and your history and showing your genealogy, and you submit it to the Bureau of Conveyances on Oahu, and people are like, well, the Bureau of Conveyances, isn't that the state? Well, the state is running it now, but it was implemented or established by King Kamehameha III back in 1848 or 1850. Sorry, there's a lot of years to remember. Yeah, the Great Mahele. So that's a trust. And, you know, the Kingdom of Hawaii, you know, like you go into the library of the courtroom up there on the second floor, and you'll see all the chief judges all the way back from before the illegal overthrow. It's the same court. Hawaii is the only state of all, you know, besides being a fake state, it's the only state throughout the 50 states that has a land court. So a lot of people can get their land back that way. And then, you know, you have the ceded lands and the kingdom crown lands. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different variables.
The thing that I've noticed, you probably also, is there's lots of spokesmen in the Hawaiian community, and they don't seem to have a focused voice that's somehow recognized. It's like fingers, but they haven't come together. We've tried, I guess.
It's happening. They've tried. We're still trying. We're trying right now. It's all about solutions, and that's what I'm here for.
I'm just hoping that we all can do this together, rather than, you know, there's lots of ways to acquire property. One is deed it. The other is fight for it, right? So
I know some Hawaiians that are like getting busy, like working, and they're buying land, you know, and they're like, you know, we're not going to wait for, you know, anything to happen, and we're just going to be successful, you know, business owners and buy our own land, buy our own home, you know, but not everybody can do that, you know.
Oh yeah, I know. That's why I was talking about the different tiers, the tiers of homelessness. And, you know, I got here in '88, and I thought at the time that when someone said, you should see how it used to be. And then now here I am 30 years later, I should tell the people, no, you should have seen how it used to be. I don't know if we can roll back clocks. The Kingdom of Hawaii may be hard to reestablish unless we're pushing back over something that's already over 100 years later. But the quality of life and the dignity of the Hawaiian people and giving them assistance, I don't see how that can't pass. So that's why I'm so hot on this idea of what you're saying. How do we bridge that gap to get the non-Hawaiians to help in some way that can be meaningful and not feel like they're taking over?
We can do that through education and awareness, like what we're doing right now. You know, everybody can come to the table. I think a lot of us, most of us, you know, unless you're like a very wealthy individual living on Maui, where, you know, you can afford that, but you know, for the other tier that we're talking about, we make up a majority.
Yep. And
we need to come together and support something, because, you know, supporting our efforts towards restoration and acquiring our land back, you know, is going to help. It's going to help the majority.
Do you think that the other thing, like if you have money, you can solve all the problems? You think that there are sources of money that can and will come forward to support what you have already?
There has been, and there, it can be more, but I think people need to see that we have something that is viable, something that we're focused on, something that they can put their trust in, and it's already been demonstrated by our relief hub after the fire, you know, how the community and the world community can come together. You know, there wasn't one American flag that was flying, you know, on West Maui and any of the hubs. Not at our hub. It was all international support. There's other countries that, you know, feel for us, and they saw the slow response of the government and how we were just kind of left out there to fend for ourselves. You know, the police tried to kick us out of the park once the federal agents, or I think it was Border Patrol, U.S. Marshals, ATF, they came out with MPD, and they're like, this is like a week after the fire when they finally came and told us, "Oh, you guys need to evacuate." This is at night. It was like 10 p.m. You guys need to leave the park. It's closed. If you don't leave, you're all gonna get arrested. And we had like several hundred people there at night, and and I was like, "Where are we gonna go?" Oh, you go to the other side. Well, the roads are closed down, and where are we gonna go to the other side? We're still trying to get our people accounted for. There's families that are still missing. So a lot of people, yeah, they could have just left, but they're not gonna leave if they can't find their family, or they just needed help. So they were basically, what they told us was that, okay, well, you can stay, but you can't stay out at night. You can't congregate, So we just told everybody, just go in their tents and go in your cars until it's daylight, and then the police won't come out here and harass us. But
that worked?
Yeah, it worked. We were able to, finally, like, one of them just says, one of the cops says, okay, this is what we'll do. But the odd thing or strange thing about it is, like, there were people from MPD that were coming out dropping off supplies to us before that happened, and I got to see Lawrence Kahaha. And I said, Lawrence, says, MPD tried to kick us out of here last night, and he pulled out his pen and his paper. He's like, that's not going to happen again. So I guess he went and reported back to Mayor.
Yeah, did that.
Yes, he works with Mayor Bisson, so he told me.
I was wondering where did I think I interviewed him either here or somewhere else. We did an interview. Really a nice guy, very involved.
Yeah, so he was, he was with the mayor's office, even though we didn't see the mayor until like a month later. He came out there, and I go way back with the mayor before he was a mayor, before he was a judge. He was a deputy prosecuting attorney, and I was doing volunteer work with Friends of the Maui Drug Court in support of the Drug Court and Second Circuit Court to divert nonviolent felony drug offenders from incarceration into community court supervision, giving people an opportunity to have an alternative to incarceration, so they were able to rebuild their lives and get all the support, treatment, and whatever assistance they needed to get back into the community.
And that's still obviously ongoing today.
Yeah, very
I wonder why
successful
there
program.
isn't more of that at the jail. Maybe it's going on and I don't know it, but I always wonder why there's no rehabilitation side by side with incarceration. How do you turn things around unless you have alternatives?
Yeah, well, as I was saying, getting back to why I had mentioned that was because of my relationship with the mayor back then, where he made that program possible. If he didn't sign off of it as a deputy prosecuting attorney, we would not have had that program.
I see.
So so it was nice to see him when he came out there, on the month anniversary. He came out there to check on us, and it was nice to see him. And I'm sure he was busy. He looked really stressed. He was very exhausted. And it was just like one of those unfortunate things that, something happened on his shift. And
you know what I've learned about him and watching him as mayor? He thinks like a judge. Meaning, if he makes a decision and not everyone likes it, he's okay with that. That's different than different than a typical politician. So I still look forward to having conversations with him to work out some of these details and prioritize this emergency in such a way. By the way, how much time do you see left? I can't see. What do you see there on that side? 3 minutes?
3 minutes. Yeah. How are we going to kill time we got to kill times for 3 minutes.
No, but let's see. But this side says, we got 2 minutes. So
okay,
that's why I say I don't know which clock to look at. But I know one thing. I want to make sure I clear the deck here for a second. What's really important that you want to say when we have the floor here for everyone? Anything really important to you that you want to make sure you say?
I think everything that we talked about was very important. If there's so many things that are important. It's not just one thing. But I think one thing that's most important is that we can hopefully communicate. I want to see more communication, and not on social media. We need to have more town hall meetings and people getting together, and let's hash this out. As family, like ho'oponopono would probably be the best thing that we can do, is come together. No such thing as ho'oponopono on social media. We've got to do it face to face.
I think it's important to recognize right now here, we as public access have been holding up a flag of independence for a long time. And I know there's a great deal of people that could take advantage of this medium here at Public Access TV to be able to get that message out. I want to be able to share that to all the people in the community because it's been a valuable thing. It's had me going on here for 30 years. Amazing to say. We're running out of time, but because I never know when the end really is, we're going to get these clocks coordinated someday. You'll see.
I love you, Lahaina. Love you, Maui. Love you, community. Aloha.
I hope that you'll consider coming back. And also, besides being in here, if there's important things going on that you'd like to cover, I'm not a, quote, news man, but just like getting you here. You're an important voice, and if you see others and things that should be seen and heard, you're welcome here.
Thank you. I'll make sure I get in touch with our other leaders out there that can come in here and share what they got going on.
And, you know, this goes like it's after the problem, we get to something else. So I look forward to sharing about your music and all the kind of things that really help us enrich all kinds of parts of our life.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank all you for joining us. And if there's any time left, it's only because I can't see clearly. See, to me, it looks like 30
second countdown.
But remember, we started. So we're somewhere near the end. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you'll come back again. Jon Kinimaka, it has been a pleasure.
Pleasure.
God bless you.
Mahalo
Aloha.
for having me. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. You're always welcome back.
Aloha.
Aloha. Take care, you guys out there.